About it, of course, is our political correspondent, Tom Harwood, who's here. Good morning. It's interesting that a lot of the papers this morning have got attacks being formed on Penny Mordaunt, who, if you look at the Conservative Party membership, seems absolutely to be the front runner.
Yeah, certainly. It's been a remarkable few days for the Penny Mordaunt campaign, which really wasn't seen as being sort of one of the leading lights in this election until Wednesday, when her campaign launched. It was seen to be a very professional launch. Penny Mordaunt has always been a good performer at the dispatch box of the House of Commons, and that's something that will no doubt play well for her as the hustings begin, as those debates start to be played out over this weekend. But there are some questions that people do raise of her, not least Lord Frost, who has now decided to back the Liz Truss campaign. He's talking about the competence of Penny Mordaunt. And she hasn't held many briefs in government for particularly long periods of time. And then there's the question of her economic agenda as well.
He says that she fails to grasp her brief as well. And there were many times during Brexit negotiations he sort of looked around for her and couldn't find her. In other words, that's sort of she's unreliable and incompetent.
That's the allegation. And there's also another allegation about a time when she was working for Kensington Council and had a very brief stint of being in charge of their communications before being moved on. That's the allegation. However, on the other hand, David Davis, a supporter of Penny Mordaunt, says the opposite is true, that she was always relied upon, and that at Chequers she was one of those big voices speaking out against then Prime Minister Theresa May's Brexit deal. So you do have two sides to that story, but it's definitely one that is worth exploring in more detail, and I'm no doubt there will be more stories to come out over this, because really this is a very quick process. It's a surprisingly quick process to get down to those final two, and then a surprisingly long process between those final two. And so this really does matter, because Rishi Sunak, yesterday, achieving 101 votes, it's the lowest lead that any leading candidate has had in that second round vote of any Tory leadership contest in history. So he's not as far ahead as Boris Johnson or Theresa May or David Cameron or any of these people were.
That's interesting.
But he's 19 votes away from being guaranteed a place on the ballot. The way that the maths works is as soon as you get to 120 MPs, that's more than a third of the party. And because the final two are decided when three are voted upon, if you see what I mean, the third is knocked out. If you have more than a third of the party, you're onto the ballot. So if Rishi Sunak can find 19 more votes between now and Monday evening, I think it's possible. I think it's likely, but it's not impossible that it could be, for example, if Penny Mordaunt does very well at the debates, and the first hustings is at 1 p.m. today, a Conservative home hustings, and then there's a television debate this evening as well. Two more television debates scheduled for over the weekend. This is going to be a frantic period of campaigning, and at television debates, moments can happen. Real moments that change the course of a campaign, and you could get switches between these different campaigns. And, of course, as candidates drop out, their supporters all become free to back other people as well. I think there is momentum behind the Liz Truss campaign now. You've got some big beasts backing it. And it was really interesting. I spoke to Suella Braverman, the candidate who has just been knocked out of the last round yesterday. And she was saying something very, very interesting about the ideological positioning of these candidates. She describes Penny Mordaunt as someone on the left of the party. She describes Rishi Sunak as someone on the left of the party. And she says members deserve a choice between someone on the right of the party and someone on the left of the party in those final two. And so what we might see is this split right vote, which is Liz Truss, Kemi Badenoch, Suella Braverman. If that all unites behind one candidate, like Liz Truss, who's currently the lead of those three, that's pretty much a guaranteed spot in the final two. That's if it can unite. And we know that the Conservative Party has not always been the best at uniting its factions in the past.